wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'du. The Honorable Miss Septa Aryanika MPD as a lecturer of seminar in language teaching subject and all of my beloved friends that I proud of. The firstly, let me say gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala because of His bless I can present this proposal without any trouble and any obstacle through this video. The salawat and salam always given to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam who has guided us from the darkness into the lightness. And today, in this good occasion, Inayah Rohma Oktavia from 6F with the student's number 1711040219 would like to present the proposal entitled Students' Ability in Writing Analytical Exposition Text. And now, let's go to chapter 1. The first is the background of the problem. As we know that writing is one of the English skills that should be mastered by the students. Writing also considered as a factor of student success in learning English. Writing is the most difficult skill because it requires complex activity and also thinking. In writing, the students have to know the way to find ideas, express it, and also organize it into a written form. Writing is used in almost level of students. Through writing, the students are supposed to be able to express their idea in a written form. There are many ways to express writing. One of them is through a text. Thus, one of the text which is provided in the syllabus curriculum 2013 is analytical exposition text. Analytical exposition text is the text which tells the author's idea related to the something or phenomenon happens. So, based on the preliminary research, the researcher found some problems. Those are, the students faced difficulties to find out the ideas related to the something or phenomenon happens. The next problem, the students feel like cannot express that idea in a written form. Sometimes, when the students can express their idea, they cannot elaborate it into a paragraph with a good grammar. And next, the students cannot identify a correct word because the spelling and the written form sometimes is different in English. And next, the students still confused in using appropriate language and still lack of knowledge about grammar. That's why the student still didn't use the language features well of analytical exposition text. And the last problem is the students not really considering the use of punctuation and also capitalization because they think that these elements of writing are not really important when they are making paragraph or the text. Talk about problems in writing. There are three classifications of writing problems. The first is psychological problems, linguistic problems, and the last is cognitive problems. Linguistic problems is the problem occurred when the students unable to express their idea in English paragraph, and then they cannot spell the English word well. They do know the meaning, they are lack of English vocabulary, and then sometimes they are cannot identify the English sound representations. The linguistic problems may include syntax, grammar, vocabulary, and mechanic. Mechanic here include punctuation error, spelling error, and capitalizations error. So, based on the problem appears on the students in SMAN 1 Abung Semuli, the researcher analyzed it and those problems include in the linguistic problem. And then there are two previous research related to this research. The first previous research was conducted by Dr. Ibrahim Mohamed Al-Faqih entitled University Students English Writing Problems, Diagnosis and Remedy. His findings showed that those university students have various writing problems such as language problems at the level of morphology and syntax, and then usage error, and then mechanical mistake. In here, mechanical mistakes such as spelling error, punctuation error, and capitalization error, and then lack of writing development skill, cognitive problem, and the last, grab motor problems. And then the second previous research was conducted by Adnan Zaid entitled Dealing the Linguistic Problem faced by the master students in their thesis writing. The result of his research showed that there are a lot of students still lack of knowledge about grammar, although they had been master program. Besides that, there are some problems usually faced by the students such as tenses, sentence pattern, and also diction. So the differences between my research with the previous research is that here I'm only focused on the analyzing students' ability based on the linguistic problem through text. And the reason why I want to do this research because I want to know how far the students' ability based on the linguistic problem that they usually face, especially in writing analytical exposition text. And the second one is to know what kind of linguistic problem appears on the students when they are writing analytical exposition text. Now, next is the limitation of the problem. The researcher only focused on the analyzing students' ability of writing analytical exposition text based on the linguistic problem. And the next is formulation of the problem. There are two formulations of the problem here. The first is how is the student's ability in writing analytical exposition text? And second, what are the linguistic problems find out on the student's writing of analytical exposition text? And the next is the use of the research. The first is theoretically. This research, which is expected, can give new information to the reader about the student's ability in writing analytical exposition text. And the second is practically. This research is expected can give new information to the students related to the some problems that they usually face, and it can show their ability especially in writing analytical exposition text. After conducted this research, the researcher hoped that the students or the reader can increase their understanding or insight about the text itself. And the last is the scope of the research. The first is the subject of the research. The subject of this research is the students at the second semester of the 11th grade of SMAN 1 Abung Semule. And the second is the object of the research. The object of this research is the student's ability in writing analytical exposition text and the linguistic problem. And then the place of the research. This research will be conducted by the researcher at SMAN 1 Abung Semule. And the last is the time of the research. This research will be conducted by the researcher at the second semester in the academic year 2019 and 2020. And the next is, let's go to chapter 2. The first is concept of writing. Writing is the process of expressing idea or thoughts into a written form. That's why writing is included in a productive skill. Linderman said that writing is the process of communication which is used conventional symbol graphic to convey a message to the reader. And beside that, Harmer states writing as the process that what we write is often heavily influenced by a concern of genres. Then, these elements have to be present in the learning activities. On the other hand, Noonan explains writing skill is a complex cognitive process which is use knowledge or insight that's sustainable in a long time. So, from the definition of writing by some expert before, it can conclude that writing is a complex cognitive process used to write something, use a grammatical correct, in a period of time in order to make the reader or students understand the meaning, and it will be influence them. And the next is the concept of writing ability. Siahaan argues that writing ability is the skill of the writer to communicate the information or message to the reader. And if the writer able to communicate the information or message itself in a written form well, it means that the writer has a good writing ability. So, we can conclude that writing ability is the ability of the writers used to communicate the information or ideas in a written form by considering some aspect in writing. It means that writing is not only find ideas and then express it, but also we should organize it into a good paragraph by considering some aspect in writing. And the next is concept of linguistic problem. Birne classified problems in writing into three types. The first is psychological problems, the second is linguistic problem, and the third is cognitive problem. Linguistic problem, as I said before, is the problem that occur when the students unable to express their idea in English paragraph. They are limit of English vocabulary and lack of knowledge about grammar. They also do know the meaning of English word. They cannot identify the English sound representations, and even they cannot spell the word well. The linguistic problem may include syntax, grammar, vocabulary, and also mechanic. Mechanic here include punctuation, capitalization, and also spelling. So, next, the concept of analytical exposition text. As I said before, that there are many ways to express writing, one of them through a text. Juhari states that analytical exposition text is the text which tell the author's idea and then give a conclusion to make sure the reader about something or phenomenon happens. Besides that, Gerard argues that writing analytical exposition text is the text that has a function to make sure the reader related to the something or phenomenon happens, and analytical exposition text is one of the argumentative texts. So, based on this definition of analytical exposition text by some experts, we can conclude that analytical exposition text is the text or is one of the argumentative texts which tell the writer's idea related to the something or phenomenon happens around them in order to convince the reader. So, next, let's go to chapter 3. Research methodology. The first is research design. This research uses descriptive quantitative design where the researcher will explain or describe the phenomenon happens in the research, and then the data on the form of numerical. And the second is research subject. The first is population. The population will be used in this research is the students at the second semester of the 11th grade of SMAN 1 Abung Semuli. And the second is sample. The sample of this research is the students at the second semester of the 11th grade science of SMAN 1 Abung Semuli from class 1, 2, 3, and 4. And next is the data collecting technique. The data collecting technique of this research are the interview and also the test. And the next is research procedure. Before the researcher conducting the researcher should pay attention on the procedure before. These are the first, determining the subject of the research. The second, determining the instrument of the research will be used. And the third, administering the test or conducting the test. The fourth, the researcher should collect the students' work, and the last, analyzing the data. And the next is the validity of the data. There are two types. The first is content validity. To get content validity, the researcher should adjust the test with the material being taught in the school. It means that the researcher should make the test which is suitable or based on the syllabus or textbook which is used by the English teacher in the SMAN 1 Agung Sekolah. And the second is construct validity. Construct validity is the validity of the data which is focused on the use of the test or types of the test will be used to measure what will be measured. Briefly, we can say that construct validity is types of validity which is focused on the types of the test will be used. And the next or the last is the technique of the data analysis. There are some steps here. The first, the data of student score will be determined by the researcher. The second, determining the student score category based on the test category before. The third, find out the percentage of the student score category and then analyze it. The fourth, find out the total of the student's average score. And the last, make a conclusion of the finding of the research finding. So now I will make a conclusion of this research. The conclusion of this research is that the researcher will analyze the student's ability based on the linguistic problem through analytical exposition text. And then the researcher do this research because the researcher want to know the ability of the students based on the problem that they usually faced, and then to know what kind of linguistic problem that usually appears on the students, especially in writing analytical exposition text. After conducted this research, the researcher hope that the students will know what kind of problem that they usually face, and then they can reduce their problem and fix it so that they can increase their understanding or knowledge about the analytical exposition text. So I think enough for today, and I'm so sorry if there are many mistakes of my video. Thank you so much for your watching, and last I say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you.